Hello and welcome to Impact Africa, our online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively. Yes, this is me, Kemi Akiode Adebayo, aka Mama K. And in today's program, which is a special series one, where we're celebrating the International Women's Day 2022. Yes. And the theme for this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And the campaign slogan by the United Nations is Break the Bias. So let me give you a little bit about what International Women's Day is about. And for those who don't know, in South Africa, we actually celebrate it twice in a year. So this is the international one, which is on the 8th of March every year. And on the 8th of August in South Africa, we have our own Women's Day celebrated. So telling you about what the International Women's Day is about, it is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day, like I said earlier, is celebrated annually on the 8th of March, and the day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. To give you a little bit of history of what it is about, in 1908, yes, that far behind, we had 15,000 women who marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. Women's oppression and equality was spurring women to become more vocal and for them to be more active in campaigning for change. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th century, industrial workers, especially women, worked for little pay in dangerous factories. In 1911, there was a fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York in America, where most of the staff worked in horrible, inhumane conditions. The fire sadly killed 146 workers in less than 20 minutes. Can you believe that? The victims sadly were mostly immigrant girls as young as 14 who were trapped inside the sweatshed and could not escape the smoke and flames. Really, really sad tragedy that was. That tragedy then galvanized workers around the world, and it helped to further unite the women's equality movement to the struggle for workers' rights. So by 1913, socialist organizations and labor unions in various countries began to celebrate International Women's Day on March 8th. The United Nations started celebrating properly in 1975. So yes, the different timeline, in terms of when this International Women's Day actually started. Was it 1911? Was it 1975? But I just thought to give you a little bit of background to it. So in this special series, I was blessed and fortunate enough to have a conversations and chat with three amazing, dynamic women who I have a lot of respect for. And, the question focused on mainly, what can we do to address, breaking the bias? And what more can be done to improve gender equality? So you'll be listening to my conversations with these three amazing women. I will quickly name them. Mrs. Madelein Mkunu. She is the founder, CEO for Leading Women of Africa. She's originally from DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and lives in South Africa and does a lot of work across Africa. And then I had my sister from another mother, Mrs. Cheryl Bailey-Ayogu. She's an organizational strategist, who does a lot of work and has lived across continent in Nigeria, in South Africa, in the United Arab Emirates, and she's now back in the USA. She's African American, and you'll hear more of what she had to share as well. And then I had my young sister, friend, daughter, mentee. Oh, she plays a lot of role in my life. Her name is Mrs. Juries-May. She's South African, currently living in Europe, and still shuttles, so she hasn't left South Africa. Believe me, she has not. She's still very much South Africa, but trying a new season of her life in Europe now. And she's an actor, producer, director, motivational speaker, does voiceover. Wow, she's a very, very creative and talented young lady. So enjoy. Welcome to Impact Africa and to celebrate International Women's Day 2022 in a grand style. We've got an amazing, dynamic, hardworking, strong. I could go on and on. She is the founder, CEO of Leading Women of Africa, Madam Madelein Mkunu, and she's from DRC and based in Cape Town, works across Africa. But before I tell everybody about who you are, I think just share with us, what does Leading Women of Africa do? And just tell us a little bit about you as well as a women activist.
Right. Thank you, Mama Kay. Thank you again for inviting me at this platform. Really, it's always amazing, and it always feels great to be around you. Your energy, your power is really always, really contagious, I must say. Yeah, like you introduced me, I am the founder and CEO of Leading Women of Africa. This is a Pan-African platform that brings women together and stakeholders with the aim of really ensuring that more and more women emerge as successful leaders in whatever field, whatever spheres that they are operating into, whether it is politics. We want to see more and more women in politics. We want to see more and more women leading corporate. We want to see more and more women in the entrepreneurship space. As we know it, Africa is actually, the economy of Africa is sustained by entrepreneurs. And we really just want to make sure that women on the continent have access to those opportunities that allow them to grow their businesses, with the aim of them creating jobs and contributing in the process of economic development in their respective countries. So that is basically the battle that we've been doing for the past few years.
Wow, well done, and kudos to you and your team at Leading Women of Africa. I have so much respect for you, you know that. Thank you for flying the flag. And we're so fortunate in South Africa that we get to celebrate the International Women's Day twice a year. So we're celebrating in March for the international one, and we do celebrate, our local one as well in the month of August. So each year we have different themes, as you're aware, for the United Nations to do the International Women's Day. And I know this year it's about gender equality for a sustainable tomorrow, which basically the slogan is breaking the bias. So my question to you is, how or what more can we do to break the bias?
Right. Thank you so much for this question. And, this question has been going on for, one was said, for centuries already.
I agree.
And I always name this question or this topic when we discuss about it, women's journey to freedom. Because it's not, there's no destination, it feels like. It's like we've been journeying, for years and years again. And if I can just start with the International Women's Day that we're celebrating this month, it started in 1911. Where 100 women from different countries, they agreed that, we actually need to stand and promote equal right, where men and women could have the equal right. And I think that was the time where women even started voting Okay, then there was like conferences like Le Beijing in 1975 and 1995 that really stressed the empowerment of women as one of the central development goals of the 21st century. And we have, I'm just trying to go through the journey. We remember the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, where again, there was promotion of women, of gender equity, where women empowerment was one of the, the struggle, or one of the agenda that we were fighting, so we can combat poverty, hunger, diseases, and really just place women at the center of development. Then we finish MDGs. We are now, and I think actually before even the Sustainable Development Goals, the AU started what they were calling the decades of African women, which started in 2010 to 2020, where again they were just trying to push this agenda of women empowerment, right? Then we then got to the Sustainable Development Goals now, which are the Goal 5. Is again placing the woman at the center of development, without forgetting our very own, the AU, the Agenda 2063. Again, women at the center of development, where the Agenda 2063 specifically says that the Africa of tomorrow, it will be the Africa where men and women and youth, we all enjoy the development of this continent. So the journey continues and continues. That's why I'm saying it for centuries now, and it's like we're still talking about the same thing. We were not born, we were born, we found the same story. We are now here, we also embrace the same story. And really, to one answer that I do have is actually in terms of how to overcome, how to break the barrier. We at Leading Women of Africa, we have analyzed this journey, and we say that, why aren't we getting where we're supposed to be? Every year, every 10 years, we set targets, and we're still not reaching our targets. And why? I think we have realized that there is insufficient, must I call it? Well, I don't want to put anyone on spotlight, but, one could say maybe there's an insufficient political will, or insufficient consensus from stakeholders, right? That in terms of committing themselves to this agenda. Because yes, we can have agenda everywhere. And I think, so different countries, we have best policies. In South Africa, we have one of the best policies around the world. But if those policies are not implemented, if those policies are there and there is no sufficient will to actually implement those policies, then nothing will happen. We will definitely continue to talk about, how do we break this? How do we, ensure that women emerge and all that, and that we have all these policies that are collecting dust around various cupboards around the world, But so as Leading Women of Africa, we are saying, let's try this solution. And that is actually the motto of Leading Women of Africa now. It says, driving the socio-economic transformation in Africa or in the world in partnership with stakeholders and women. So we are saying that if there is no partnership, and partnership is where, there's something for, there's something for everyone, for all the parties involved. Right? When we say partnership, it means there's something for every party involved. There's something for stakeholders where they need to see the value that women can bring. Why are we promoting women empowerment? They need to see the value, but also from ourselves, we need, as women, we need to say, we also need to coordinate ourselves. We need to be change agents, around the world, so it will really take two to tango, as we always say. It will take, the stakeholders, because as we know it, up to now, whether you look at the demographics in politics or in corporate, there's still more men than women. So they need to be that partnership that stakeholders will say, you know what, actually, and we know that research have shown that the more women are in the company, actually it increases the bottom line, right? And even in politics, if we have more women in parliament, we will improve, our policy, that we are making. So wherever there are more women, so they need to be that consensus from both sides. So that's basically what we are working toward, is to see how do we engage more with stakeholders, but also on our side, how us as women can organize and say, we need to really take a conscious decision to say, you know what, we are all change agents around the world. And we need to see, if they don't give us a seat to for us to be on a table, then maybe let's grab a seat, let's sit there, but let's really show our commitment. So I would like to really just to appeal to stakeholders, to women. We all need to show commitment to all the agenda that we've been promoting for centuries now, in terms of, the gender bias. How can we break the gender bias? It will take really commitment, and from women and from stakeholders, in order for us to reach the goal that we want to reach. So that's why we as women of Africa, we are saying, let's drive the socio-economic transformation in partnership with women and other stakeholders. For us, that is the solution. And that's what we are driving as a solution.
And well done, and kudos to you. There was a lot there that you quickly, touched upon, and this is supposed to be a kind of a short interview. So, I wouldn't drag it more, but you focused on, the fact that, it's a journey, and we've been talking about all these things from decades, and not that nothing hasn't changed, but the change is still slow. But what the key, of what you're saying, and my take home, mostly is, in terms of what leading women of Africa are doing, is we need to be the change agent ourselves. We need to make sure we're committed. We need to force ourselves to be on the table, even if we're not called onto it. And it starts with the political, structures as well. So, and I know you're doing a lot, now, in terms of more initiative to encourage more women to get into politics and not be discouraged, from being in politics, because that's where the policies are made. That's where we need to be. So, wow, there's just so much there. We just wanted to touch on one item only, because if not, we could be here all day. Thank you, for giving us that insight, and kudos to you in terms of what Leading Women of Africa is doing, to play your part in focusing on the socio-economic factor and working in partnership with the stakeholders. I believe, that can only achieve so much. So we wish you well, we celebrate you, we honor you, we continue to look forward to seeing you more, to share, your experience with others and give us more tips and solutions of what can be done. Is there anything else you want to share before we close? And we will be sharing the details of the Leading Women of Africa. What can we look forward to in the next few months or in the next 6 months, with us? But thank you, for your time. But if there's anything else, my sister, please just share it.
No, I think for now, let's just celebrate Women's Month. We are used to this. Yeah, I would like to wish just Happy Women's Month to every single woman and our stakeholders, because now it's not only about women, it's how do we all journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear sister. Well, you've heard it all from Madelein Mkunu, and we're going to be sharing the details at the end. And we keep celebrating the Women's Month. Till next time, Au revoir, as we say in French, huh? Am I right?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Till next time. God bless. Go. Right, this is still Mama K, and we're still celebrating the International Women's Day 2022. And another guest that I've got she is a beautiful lady, inside, outside, smart, elegant, loving, kind, generous. Wow, I could go on and on and on and on. She's a dear sister of mine from another mother. Yes, believe me, she is. Her name is Mrs. Cheryl Bailey-Ayogu. She is an organizational development strategist, and she has lived across the world. She is African American, married to a Nigerian, and as well, I call her my Nigerian sister. She has lived in South Africa. In fact, no, I need to stop. So, my dear Cheryl, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your journey before we go into celebrating the Women's Day. Tell us your journey from a little bit of it. Whatever part you want to share with us, from America to South Africa and back to America.
Well, Kimmy, I come from a very small town called Emporia, Virginia. And at the time when I was growing up, it had less than 6,000 people. So you could call me a little small town girl, but God has blessed me to have traveled the world. I've lived in Nigeria, I've lived in South Africa, I've lived in United Arab Emirates. For over 25 years, I lived overseas as compared to being in the US, but now I'm back based in the US. And it's been a very rich and full life. I've been able to impact community across the world. In Nigeria, working in medical missions for ProHealth International. In Cape Town, there with you as the director of the Network on Violence Against Women. In Johannesburg, where I worked with Africa Cocoon with the Youth Development Organization. And I also was working with the Chani Fund, which is a housing development organization also based in Cape Town, where I traveled across South Africa to all the nooks and crannies, working with people in the federation, one of the federations of the homeless people, helping them to secure housing. So it's been a very rich life in the UAE. I was an instructor. I taught ethics and social responsibility, which is very dear to my heart, having worked in the community and for community development organizations. And now currently an emergency management specialist, working with local governments and state agencies during times of disaster. So
wow.
It's been a whole lot.
I salute you, my dear sister. This is not just about asking you the question we want to ask you, but to celebrate you, to honor you. But we're going to come back for a full-on program. So this is just a little bit, of us celebrating the International Women's Day. And as you know, we're fortunate in South Africa. We celebrate it twice in a year, the International Women's Day, in March, and another one in August. And yes. I know you've been so involved with a lot of women issues and program. So let me start first, with asking you. I know the theme for this year, or the slogan, is break the bias. What more can we do to break the bias, really? From your experience, what more can we do?
Well, I mean, it's on different levels that we have to work all at one time. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's actually like a matrix. First, you have to start with yourself. What are your values? Do a self-reflection. Have the courage to say, you know what? I think might have a bias against this type of person or that type of person or this ethnic group. And be honest with yourself and say, okay, what are my values and how can I use those values to break the bias? Self-reflection, self-evaluation. And then you go on to another level. If you're involved in your family, we can think about the generations to come. How do we raise children in our society? What are the cultural norms that keep perpetuating gender bias? What do we think about people of certain sexual orientation, or people in different genders? And looking at those cultural norms and values and how we raise kids. And once again, during that evaluation and seeing how do I see myself in that place and what changes can I make around me. On the organizational level, where do I work? In the community, in the organizational corporation I'm in, what values does my company have? What values can I bring to that company, to that organization, to that community to see how I can break the bias? Because it's you can't just do it alone. You have to do the self-reflection. I believe it starts with me, but you also have to be willing and have the courage to have the difficult conversations, to face the courage to face your own self and your own bias about how you are. I've been blessed to have grown up in a middle-class family in the US. And I last year took a class on bias, and I found out that even my experiences as an African-American person in the US are different from someone else who may have grown up in a low-income area. I wouldn't have the same experience. I wouldn't have had the same opportunities for education. So how does that even shape my bias? So it's really about courage to look at yourself, take a look at yourself in the mirror, courage to face what's going on in your community, in your culture, and the courage to also have the difficult conversations in the organizations where we work. We also have to challenge and look at our spirituality and our faith and how certain aspects of our faith also not include women or not put them on the same level of equality to provide equity for women. So these are the various facets I think that we need to face, and everybody needs to work on that facet that's best for them to make a difference.
Wow, this is a different, totally new perspective, that you've shared. I'm being honest with you, where, you're saying it's like a matrix and we start with ourselves. Because most of the time we look out, it's always about, organizations or, other people, community. But you're saying we need to start with ourselves.
Yes.
Wow.
I definitely agree with that.
Deep.
It's hard for individuals, particularly if you've grown up in an entitled community, where you've always seen your community has always been the one that's up. And now you have to say, wow, I have to start including other people. How does that change my power? How does that change my status? Am I willing to let go of that to include, other people inside? So, and it's a huge mindset change. And mindset change takes years. It can't happen overnight.
Wow, that's deep. So my next question to you is, and I know, most of the time I feel as well that, with United Nations and some of these themes or slogan, we're just repeating or saying these things, in different ways each year. Although, yes, saying that there's been a lot of changes, since this whole International Women's Day was started in 1911. However, we're still a long way, from, where we'll want to be, especially in terms of gender equality. So from your perspective and your experience, what more can be done, to improve gender equality in the society, whether it be in Africa, especially you that you've lived in Nigeria, South Africa, or the UAE, which is a different, area completely, or even in America, so wherever you want to focus on, so please do share with us what more can be done.
One thing that has really helped with the improvement around women equality in the world has been around actually the laws. Mm-hmm. The work the United Nations has done to push countries to sign on to treaties, and those countries creating those laws in their countries. And what happens is once they create the laws, then they have to look at the implementation. We did a lot of that when I worked at the network. Looking at the implementation, how was it impacting women? Were the laws really real in their lives, or were they just on a sheet of paper? So making that assessment, getting feedback from community. Often we will go to Parliament, take members of the network with us to share their stories of how they are experiencing the laws. Looking at the Domestic Violence Act in South Africa and looking at the Sexual Offenses Bill, how were women experiencing those laws in particular? And I think that South Africa has come a long way. I also used to sit on a committee that actually looked at how were survivors of violence being treated at medical centers. So you have to not just create the laws, look at how they're implemented. Look at all the stakeholders and the roles that they play within those laws. Is each person fulfilling the roles that they need to fulfill? I think that, like I said, it's a matrix. It's so multifaceted. And somehow we need to put that matrix down on paper, look at it as a huge project. And it's going to take a lot of planning, but in engaging every single stakeholder. So take it from the international level to the country level, to the state, local government level, down to each individual community, and then to the family.
Wow. That is so insightful. Looking at the laws, the policies, what has been available, and saying that, like you said, the United Nations has done a lot of work on it, and forcing countries and different organizations as well to work with them. Then implementation.
Yes.
Because yes, you could have laws and so on, and we write the right things, and it's there in a book somewhere.
Exactly.
How we implemented it.
And I like
what you said. Yeah, I liked what you said as well about now involving the stakeholders as well with the feedback. Is it working? Is it not working? What else can we do? Sorry, you were going to add.
I was going to say, people may think that, okay, we keep saying the same thing. We keep saying the same thing every year. But the thing is, we have to keep talking. You have to keep talking and not get tired of talking. It's like when you're raising your children and they're small and you need to discipline them. You have to keep talking. The minute you stop talking, that child is going to miss that lesson. And you might have to say it over and over again, but eventually it clicks. And that's how you do mindset change. It's not just about the training. You have to keep training people over and over again. And eventually we're hoping that with that training, something will click. They will start applying what they've learned about gender, about inclusion, about diversity into their own life. How do I incorporate it in my own life? So when we're having, different events and you're featuring speakers, are you thinking about the diversity? Are you thinking about communities that should always be included? And changing your mindset into being inclusive, showing that willingness and openness and providing opportunities for other voices to be heard. I think that the more we see the other, the more we see different people from different communities and different backgrounds, the more we'll have acceptance because we'll have better understanding. And you have to be willing and desiring to want to understand, to hear the different perspectives and be able to challenge one another and listen to one another, listening with the goal of understanding.
Right. I always write when I'm doing all this interview because people always think when I do this, it's about they only benefiting from it. But for me, wow, I benefit so much. And I believe the only way to do that as well is to, write this down, record it. And I was just scribbling there, because it was just so much, you were giving us there. And I'm afraid that's all the time we've got, but definitely we are going to be back to celebrate you, my dear sister, where we'll have a full-on program to hear that story, because you have, a lot of, stories and things, to share. And you're just an amazing networker. That is one thing.
Much. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you
Salute.
so much for having me. I'm really honored. And it's my pleasure, and I'll be glad to come back on with you again.
Oh, thank you. And I know it's still early morning on your side, so on that part of the world. So thank you for accommodating us as well with the time. And we will be back with you to hear more from Madam Cheryl Bailey-Ayogu. Thank you so much. Till next time, watch out for the next guest. This is Mama K signing off. God bless. Once again, and for this segment, I've got another beautiful young lady, so eloquent, so passionate about what she does, so brilliant with all what she does. Oh, kind-hearted. I could go on. Loyal, giving, forgiving, gentle. My dear sister, friend, daughter, everything combined, and Juries-May. She's an actor, producer, director, motivational speaker, voiceover. Oh, she does so much in the community. And she is known in South Africa, and I believe in Africa, to some extent with some of the programs that she's done. So, my dear Anne, welcome to the segment.
Thanks for having me.
As you know, thank you. Today is about celebrating International Women's Day. And we felt we want to honor a few of our ladies. So we're honoring 4 ladies to share the stories and to ask 1 or 2 questions about what International Women's Day is about and the issues of women. So, but before we go into that, we want to know a little bit about you. Come on, share with us. Who is Anne? Just tell us whatever you want to share with us. I know you, but do share.
I mean, from the perspective of myself, speaking about myself, I'm a South African woman currently living in Europe. I strongly believe in gender equality. I was raised to be a strong, self-sufficient woman. And I work in the performance space. I work in film and television and theater. And I work with children a lot. I work in the educational space a lot. So I really value myself as a woman of color, and I have strong ambitions. And although I am a filmmaker, an actress, a director, I don't define myself only by that. And I know that as the years go by, I will keep changing. I'm always changing and morphing, and my ambitions change. So today, this is who I am. When we speak again, we'll see who I'll be and how I'll be then.
No, you are all so much of a woman, and I like the fact, what you said, you've been grounded, in terms of belief that gender equality raised by, I'm sure, wonderful parents and in the system. So, and in terms of what you've been doing as well, like you said, in the performing industry, the education sector, wow. You've been doing so much. And I'm probably biased because I've known you now for some time and I see your work and I have a lot of respect, for who you are and what you are. And yes, you're in Europe at the moment. Tell us, how is that? Are you settling down well? Do you miss us in
Yeah,
South
very much.
Africa?
Of course, I miss Africa so much. But I am so grateful for this experience. It's it's jarring, and of course, it's a big culture shock. But I am someone who loves adventure, and I believe in growth. And sometimes growth isn't easy. So of course, I've been facing some challenges. But I'm doing my best to navigate it with grace and patience, and I serve an amazing God, so I'm always protected and I'm having a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. And you look beautiful as always. Very beautiful.
Likewise, you are always, to the T.
I only try. So now let's go on to International Women's Day. We're blessed to celebrate it twice a year in South Africa. I've been sharing that for those who don't know. We celebrate it in May, which is the international one, and then we celebrate nationally for South Africa in the month of August. And the Women's Day, I know, means various things for various people. And we've been going through a lot of issues over the years. This was started, the International Women's Day was started in 1911. At that time, it was about, women trying to get their voice being heard, and so on. And at the moment, I don't know where, not that I don't know where we are. We've moved a long way, from that time, now. So what I want to ask, and in your view is, how can we break the bias? I mean, that is the theme and slogan for this year's one. And I know we've been there before, in terms of United Nations coming up with these different things each year. But I guess we need to keep repeating and asking, these questions. So how, in your perspective, how can we break the bias?
I think for me, like I said to you earlier, I feel like this is a very layered question and there isn't only one answer. But I do believe that in terms of breaking biases, we need to start by understanding that there's a level of unconsciousness, there's unconscious bias. And when we can recognize that even those who are working to break the bias have biases, and we are willing to admit those, we'll be able to see them for what they are. And once we can identify within ourselves what those biases are, we can really start working on them. And when I say that, I mean from a grassroots level in terms of interpersonal. Within yourself, you need to look at how are you biased? How are you perpetuating and sending your biases out into the world? And that, yes, bias, it spreads into so many different areas of life. But when we talk about gender bias specifically, women have been oppressed and judged for so long. And when we say woman, even within that term, how inclusive are we when we refer to women? And are we inviting transgender, non-binary, anyone who actually identifies as woman into this conversation as well? And how inclusive are we of people that are also willing to fight this fight with us and break these boundaries? And so once it starts with yourself, it starts in your home. And once it starts in your home, it starts with your community. And that way we can affect the world around us. And it sounds like a very simple or not a very effective thing. If I change myself, how does the world change? But I truly believe that is the answer to so many of the social issues that we face. So for me, the biggest thing about breaking gender bias as well, and it's little things like saying boys can't play with dolls. or, you know, girls should be cleaning the kitchen. Chores don't have a gender. Toys don't have a gender. But we assign gender roles to these inanimate objects, and we impress those ideas on children who then go on into their lives, and they might not identify with that. They might not even really agree with it. But because society has created this as a norm, they tend to follow that. And if we are able to separate those ideas that, and a toy is a toy, it doesn't have a gender. Washing the dishes does not actually have a gender. There's no gender role assigned to it. That's where we can begin to start breaking those biases. I think one more thing is that we also have expectations. We expect that men need to have a certain amount of agency and women don't. And I get it. This is a historical notion that has been passed on. But that immediately implies that men aren't able to be caregivers, and that women are inherently supposed to be born with this ability. And while it might have served society before, we need to also be able to recognize where we are at now and how the world is changing and how gender roles are changing. And when we can see the world for what it is and not subscribe to ways of being that may have served us before, we can go forward in a new way.
Wow. Yeah, I think the second is like the previous guest. You were in the same room, even though you were not, because you were not even aware. Similar in terms of, starting with the self. What you're saying. We need to look within ourselves. How inclusive are we, even women? Without word women. In terms of. Yeah, that just deep, and that alone can transform into the home, into the community. Wow, I love the way you broke it down. I'll now go on to, how or what more can be done, to improve gender equality in whatever industry or in any area that you feel. What more can be done, to improve gender equality?
I think to keep with the self, I think that we need to keep ourselves in check as individuals. So when a situation arises that you yourself are experiencing a gender bias, that you find the strength within yourself to stand up and say that I don't agree with this. And in that way, we teach our peers how to treat us as well. And then I think it's also when you are in a situation and you are witnessing that maybe a colleague gets treated differently because of their gender, that you use your voice and you use the knowledge that you have, and you affect change within the immediate vicinity that you are in. And in that way, each of us can affect change. And that's even when we see our children play. That we make sure that there's a sense of equality amongst all genders. And not only that we don't define gender by male and female, that we can recognize that gender is fluid and that it is not the defining factor behind someone's ability. So I would say that would be a beginning. I think within the workplace specifically, I've witnessed and been a part of situations where I've been bullied because of my gender or been underestimated because of my gender. And I think one of the main things that would have been more effective in my fight would have been if those who actually believed in what I was saying spoke up about it and supported my plight. So I think it's to not be complacent as well within the workspace, and to back each other up when these conversations are happening. And if these conversations are not happening, you be this conversation starter. that we start talking about equal pay, that we start talking about safety within the workplace, and that we don't assign gender roles when it's almost never necessary. So I think that could be a beginning to creating more equality within our home space, within our spaces of play, and definitely within the workplace.
It's 16 hours.
Wow, that is deep. So we need to speak up. We need to use our voice. That's what you're stressing here. We need to support each other, as best, that we can. I know those are the two questions I wanted to ask, but based on what you just said in terms of support, and I'm going to just finish with that because I know we're running out of time. The notion or the perception, has been over the years, especially in Africa, that we women, we pull each other down. Do you think that is true or not true? I know that could be another topic for another day, but I just want to, because you mentioned about the support, supporting each other. So, and I know a lot of people use that term most of the time. They even came up with PhD, pull her down, kind of thing. Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with self-preservation and how we feel about ourselves. And so when I see another woman's success, I might relate that to my own failure. And we don't see each other as one. And that another woman's success actually means my success within that space. Every woman that really is working towards advancing our species is doing that for all of us. But it comes with this idea of lack of abundance. And when you feel a sense of lack within yourself, you cannot pour over and you cannot share. And I do think that there's a culture, especially with social media and the media today, where we have to look as if everything, or we attempt to look as if everything's always going great on our side. And you might end up having more comparison, right? For material purposes, for life, for all the achievements that someone else is experiencing. So I've definitely witnessed moments and been in spaces where women were tearing each other down. And I do not think that is because they are inherently bad people, but I do think it has to do with a lack of self-worth. And once we feel that we can act, that we are contributing just by being authentically ourselves, that your life matters, whether you earn R1 million or 10 Rand, your life is still so important that you still carry such an impact in this world. You won't feel that you are less than another person or another woman. So yeah, that's my take on that. Idea.
Like I said, I know we could go on and on. Now maybe, me and you, we're always having this conversation. So I think another full-on, 30 minutes conversation is necessary at some point. So definitely we'll be back, to continue to have this conversation, so that we can share and learn and unlearn and relearn, where we need to. So thank you so much. I celebrate you as we celebrate women across the world. I honor you. I appreciate you for all you're doing. And I pray that God that you serve will continue to uplift you, will continue to be there for you in everything, be it in South Africa, in Europe, wherever you are in the world, that's home, at the end of the day. So, and we wish you all the very best in this season, of your life. So till next time, you're most welcome. Bye-bye, Danke, as we say, huh?
Thank you. Asante sana.
So till next time, we wish all the women a very, very happy Women's Day. Thank you so much, and Juries-May. God bless. What an insightful conversations we all had, and them sharing their story, their journey, as well. So, Madelein, she spoke about taking more actions, more collaboration, more partnership working, to be change agents, more commitments to be shown by the government, and to get more involved in politics, which through our Leading Women of Africa organization, I just need to say, watch that space. They're going to be doing a lot in terms of mentoring women in politics. And they've been doing already, but they're going to increase that, so that we can get more women to be involved in policies and, policy making and so on. Then, my dear sister Cheryl, she spoke a lot, started with about, we need to start, ourselves as individuals. We need to change mindset. We need to keep talking, even if we keep repeating ourselves. We need to be more inclusive. We need to listen more to each other. We need to have more policies followed up with implementation. I quite agree with that completely. And then my dear sister, friend, daughter, mentee, Anne, she focused on and shared, about the fact that we need, still focusing on self, to identify the bias within ourselves and to speak up and stand up for others. Because, even within that category of us saying we're women, we're so diverse, within that. So she spoke about that. And I liked what she said at the end when she said, another woman's success is my success. And I believe in that. And I know she asked me when we were sharing, that, what do I personally think? I normally, don't get my views out there because I try and just listen to what others are saying. But from me, I actually had to write it down. I did it in 2 segments. I said, for we as women, so I'm just adding, I agree with all what our 3 guests have said, completely with what they've said. And I want to just add, as women, because this is something as well that I'm passionate about and I've worked on for a long time. So as women, we have to be more persistent. We need to continue to educate. We need to unlearn, to learn and relearn. We need not to give up despite challenges and barriers that we do face. We need to change our own unconscious bias to other women. We need to be more tolerant of each other. We need to be more sensitive. We need to avoid the puller down syndrome, which probably unconsciously do sadly exist. This was something I asked Anne, and she did ask me, what do I feel? Sadly, it does exist, but we need to make sure we're being conscious of that subconsciously we're not thinking, that envy, that self-esteem, So we need to find ways to not fall into that, whatever it is that is being called out there. We need to be genuinely happy for each other. And I'm right, to say that, because sometimes, we women, we say we're happy for each other. And I think that's when the PhD, the puller down, syndrome perceived comes in. So we need to genuinely be happy, for each other. We need to reach out more to each other. We need to mentor young girls and other women facing double or even triple gender discrimination, like on race, disability, sexuality, faith, socioeconomic. I could go on and on. There are other women, still battling with more than just being a woman. Then we need to challenge as necessary. I put as necessary there. And we need to be the light for others, to be the light in our world. And as we say in South Africa, we need to practice more Ubuntu, which basically means I am because you are. And I thank all those, that have gone before us. We stand on their shoulders today. And I pray that the generation of our girls that are coming will continue as well to not just talk about this gender equality and so on, but for us to have made more progress, by then. Then now, the second segment of people, and I put everybody together, sorry, forgive me for that, as men, companies, organizations, government, and others. So that category of people, we need to listen more. We need to genuinely ask. And I'm saying we because I run a business, I run an NGO, so I fall into that as well. We need to listen more to our employees, to our staff. We need to genuinely ask for feedback. We need to develop more women-friendly policies within our organizations. We need to avoid tokenistic gestures. Don't just do it because, I need to do it. I'm a woman, I've ticked that box. No, we need to avoid that. We need to genuinely want to embrace having more women and being more inclusive. We need to change our unconscious institutional biases. I'll call them institutional because it's already set up in some organizations that way. We need to use inclusive language. What language are you using out there? We need to use inclusive and appropriate photos and materials in our organizational publicity. Are you having, more Black women? Do you have LGBT represented? Do you have the face, of disability within your organization? Things like that. Are you focusing on older women, when the issues concerning older women? So in our materials, out there, whether virtual or hard copy, we need to show representation. We need to see people as individuals. That is really key. And we need to be more proactive rather than reactive. Not just wait for legislation to come or to tick, a box. We need to be proactive, in what we're doing rather than being reactive. I have a lot more, but unfortunately, that's all what time permits me to share. But there's a lot in there. So if anything, as a woman, as a man, as an organization, as a business, as a government, or whatever, industry or area of work you're in, there's something in there for all of us. Even if it's just one, you pick out from what the three speakers, our guests, spoke about, or what I added, there at the end. That is a good start. So if you're not doing anything, start. If you're already doing something, don't give up. Keeping on. And if you're yet as well, or you're still thinking, what's this big fuss about women, or what is it about women issues? We're already doing that, no. We need to keep talking. We need to keep doing more for our young girls. Not forgetting our boy child as well. But we need to keep doing more. So till next time, this is Mama K saying, stay safe, stay blessed, stay positive, and I celebrate all you women out there. Whatever it is you're going through, you're not alone. I celebrate you. I honor you. I appreciate you. I love you. Whether you're recognized or not, just remember you make a difference in your own way, in your family, in your faith organization, in your community, wherever. Keeping on and be the light. And yes, let us break the bias. Let us break the bias. God bless you. Love you all. Till next time on Impact Africa.